Today, I'm continuing my zero-sum series by talking about how this mindset shapes how people think about wealth and its distribution, and how this connects to political philosophy. So how does the fixed pie way of thinking enter into the political arena? Well, if you start from a belief that wealth is a finite resource, inherent in nature rather than created by human effort, then any significant accumulation of wealth by one person or group strongly implies that others have been deprived. It's easy to see how this viewpoint naturally lends itself to political arguments favoring redistribution of wealth. The goal isn't necessarily economic growth, but restoring a perceived balance or fairness by taking from those who have too much, because their having too much implies they took it from others, and giving to those who have less. The political focus becomes how to divide the existing fixed pie more equitably, rather than on strategies to make the pie bigger. In this worldview, significant inequality might be seen as inherently unjust, as evidence of exploitation or an unfair capture of resources that should belong to the community. This can cause strong egalitarian sentiments, even going so far as manifesting as a desire for shared poverty to ensure that no one gets too far ahead. Ideas like aiming for shared prosperity are seen as impractical or even dangerous to the public good. Political systems or ideologies that justify large inequalities, such as capitalism, would likely be viewed with deep suspicion or resentment. In the 18th century, Thomas Malthus famously emphasized limits and scarcity, although he recommended against redistributive policies since he felt such policies would interfere with natural checks on population. The Club of Rome, in their 1972 work, The Limits of Growth, suggested maintaining a steady state model where a world order would control and maintain the fixed pie for the benefit of everyone, at least in theory. And yes, with them in control of the slices of the pie. Funny how that works, right? Of course, we have to bring our old pal Karl Marx into the chat. For Marx, the gain of the capitalist class, such as profit and the accumulation of capital, is directly and unfairly derived from the labor of the working class. The more surplus value extracted by the capitalists, the less the workers receive relative to the value they produced. This creates an inherent antagonism where the wealth and power of one class increases at the direct expense of the other within the production process. He viewed it as a zero-sum distribution of the value created by labor. He believed that this imbalance, this inequality and alienation could only be solved by a radical restructuring of society. The zero-sum mindset, with its emphasis on finite resources and zero-sum interactions, naturally aligns more closely with critiques of capitalism. Indeed, some early socialist thinkers explicitly revived zero-sum mercantilist ideas, arguing that employment under capitalism was inherently exploitative. For someone operating with a zero-sum mindset, these critiques can feel intuitively correct, since the idea that one person's gain comes at another's expense fits right into this existing mental model. This worldview might also lead to a preference for economic systems that prioritize stability, community control, strong regulation, and equitable distribution over dynamic, potentially disruptive growth. Modern ideas like degrowth or self-limitation, which advocate for voluntary restraint and consumption, connect with the finite resource aspect of the zero-sum orientation, although the motivations might differ, ranging from philosophical or spiritual liberation to anti-consumerism rather than perceived material necessity. Essentially, the zero-sum perspective provides a pre-existing cultural or cognitive framework where the core tenets of capitalism, like endless growth and individual accumulation, seem suspect, unnatural, or even dangerous. It makes alternative economic and political philosophies that emphasize limits, redistribution of resources, or collective well-being appear more attractive, plausible, logical, or even necessary. Let's move on down the track and consider political competition in this equation. If the goods being contested, whether power, resources, status, or policy outcomes, are seen as finite, then political contests inevitably become zero-sum games. One party's victory is another party's defeat. One group's gain in influence or resources necessitates another group's loss. This framing creates an us versus them mentality in politics. Compromise becomes difficult because any concession is viewed as a loss for one's own side. Political strategy may shift towards mobilizing one's own group against perceived threats from opposing groups rather than seeking common ground or policies that could offer mutual benefits. As we have seen, especially over the past few decades, this can fuel political polarization and make good governance quite challenging. But in spite of the significant problems it causes, the zero-sum framing offers a powerful rhetorical resource for politicians across the political spectrum to exploit. It simplifies complex social and economic issues into easily digestible conflicts between clearly defined in-groups and out-groups. By activating or reinforcing an underlying belief that resources are finite and gains are subtractive, politicians can effectively portray opponents or designated outgroups as existential threats who are taking something valuable away. This mobilizes support based on fear, resentment, and the perceived need for defensive, often exclusionary policies. The problem is that complex societal challenges rarely fit into simple win-lose scenarios. Instead, they often involve intricate systems with feedback loops and possibilities for mutual gain or shared loss. A zero-sum mindset oversimplifies these issues, obscuring systemic causes, preventing nuanced understanding. It encourages simplistic solutions based on taking from one group to give to another, rather than seeking out innovative approaches that could expand opportunities for all or effectively address root causes of difficult issues. Even worse, when politics is consistently framed as a zero-sum battle, it leads to cynicism and apathy among the populace. Citizens may come to view political institutions not as mechanisms for deliberation, representation, or achieving collective well-being, but merely as arenas where power struggles determine who wins and who loses. This can lead to disengagement, radicalization, or a turn towards non-democratic means, posing a threat to the legitimacy and stability of the political order. This has been a core concern for many political philosophers from Hobbes and Locke to more contemporary theorists of democracy. Basically, those concerned with rational governance and the application of reason to public affairs find the zero-sum framing intellectually dishonest. It distorts the nature of social and economic interaction, poisons social relations, hinders effective governance, undermines democratic norms, and obstructs the pursuit of a cohesive society. Regardless of where on the political spectrum a politician stands, resorting to this framing should be seen as a rhetorical shortcut that sacrifices the complexity and cooperative potential for the sake of mobilizing political support as a winner-takes-all narrative. So what are your thoughts on the detrimental effects of zero-sum thinking in politics? Do you engage in them yourself? Let me know what your thoughts are on zero-sum politics in the comments. And as always, do the like and subscribe thing to let me know that making these videos isn't a zero-sum endeavor.